Let's talk about Aston Villa, though. Their manager, Steven Gerrard, has made a big decision, stamping his authority on the football club by changing the captain ahead of the new season. Tyrone Mings had a fight on his hands, I think, to stay in the lineup at Aston Villa anyway, with the arrival of Diego Carlos this summer. But what does this tell us about Gerrard's style of management, do you think?
Well, it tells us he's not afraid to make the bold decisions. He's not afraid to be ruthless, probably a hallmark of his playing career as well. If I was Tyrone Mings, though, I would be worried about this situation. I know that he took to Twitter and said that it's not about him and John McGinn, it's about what's right for the club. He said he has no issues with the manager's decision. I struggle to believe that, because it's never a nice situation when you are stripped of the armband. But as you say, I think it's a reflection that maybe Tyrone Mings, in a World Cup year, is not guaranteed his place in the Aston Villa starting lineup.
Well, he's been dropped from the England squad over the past couple of months anyway, because he didn't have the greatest of seasons last season. But he has been quite a good calming presence for Aston Villa. He has played well on occasion, but one or two big errors certainly undermined them at certain points last season. Steven Gerrard did reiterate throughout the course of that last second half of the season that he was looking at people, looking at places, and thinking about how they were going to improve next year. I spoke to him after one of the last games of the season. He was pretty much saying, you know, we can't go up from where we are in the league. We can't go down from where we are in the league. But ultimately, we're judging players on their ability and their application, and whether or not we're making decisions over whether or not we're going to use them next year. He's obviously made the decision in that 6-7 months that he was in charge of the club that he doesn't think that Tyrone Mings can cope with the captaincy and playing at centre half every week.
Or maybe it's just because he doesn't plan on picking Tyrone Mings. I think there's probably more to do with it. It's a club in need of a shake-up. They spent a lot of money in recent transfer windows. They were one of the first to be active this summer as well. Haven't really got much to show for it. You know, even when Steven Gerrard came in, we had a bit of a spat, I remember, on the Game Day podcast, because I was suggesting that maybe he wasn't picking up the results he should be. You said performances were good. Yeah. Look at the fixture list, and actually they fell away at the end of the season, and you were probably forced to admit I was right. So I think this is a big season for Steven Gerrard.
What I was saying to you, and I'll say it again, is that I think a lot of the last season was a watching brief for Steven Gerrard. He started off in good fashion. I thought they had some really good performances. They were unlucky not to beat Manchester United in the FA Cup. They played United off the park in that game at Old Trafford, yet at the same time they ended up conceding a narrow defeat. I think they actually were assessing the squad. Once they realised they weren't going to go down, once they realised they weren't going to be able to get in the European places, you do just genuinely take the foot off the gas just 1 or 2%, and that's quite key in the Premier League. I think that Gerrard actually spent most of the time thinking about this season, assessing the squad, getting ready for the new campaign, and I think you'll see a different Aston Villa when it comes to the start of the season. I think they did all right. Didn't they play a pre-season friendly? Some of them, they were 2-0 down towards the end of a game, and they came back.
It's only pre-season.
Did they draw 2-2 in that game?
It's only pre-season.
Bit of fight there, I think. I can't remember who that was against. Maybe you'll remind me of it.
Matthew Gould has made a good point on Twitter, actually. He says Steven Gerrard gained the captain's armband at Liverpool when Gerard Houllier took it off Sami Hyypiä. So there is a bit of precedent there.
And actually, do you know, it's really interesting because I spoke to Danny Murphy about that, and Danny says there is a situation sometimes where you have the captaincy taken off you, and it sort of frees you as a player. And Danny says that Sami really benefited from not having that weight of expectation and responsibility on his shoulders. Obviously, we don't know how Tyrone's going to react, but Mings responded yesterday in quite, I thought, classy fashion, promising to focus on his own game. For me, it's not about John or I, it's about what's best for Aston Villa. I have no issues with the manager. I've loved leading this team. Anyone who knows John McGinn knows how infectious he is, and it will be an honour to play under his captaincy. And you would expect that from Tyrone Mings. And he's overcome all sorts of adversity in his life and in his playing career. So I'd expect him to knuckle down and fight for his place in the team.
Well, he needs to, for the reasons that we've mentioned. Obviously, the benefit that he brings to England is that he is a left-footed central defender. There aren't too many of those. He could play as a left-back as well if need be, so he offers that versatility. But as you say, he hasn't been picked of late by Gareth Southgate. So he needs a good season to make sure he's on the plane for Qatar. I've never been entirely convinced by Mings, as you say. I think there are too many mistakes in his game. I think he suffers at times from a lack of concentration.
But this is not necessarily about his performance. Obviously, he's been an Aston Villa player for a while. It's more about the burden of the captaincy, isn't it? You know, they're talking about him being able to sort of free himself up so he can focus on his own game. And that's something that sort of dogs captains every now and again. We've seen it in cricket with Joe Root, where the captaincy has been taken off him because, you know, even though he is a fantastic batsman and someone that England rely on, the captaincy weighed heavy on his shoulders, especially during a time where it was very difficult because of COVID and isolation and being away in bubbles and not being able to interact with other people. You know, Harry Maguire's had problems since he's been the captain of Manchester United. Why is it that the captaincy, that little armband that sits on the left bicep, affects some people so negatively sometimes?
Well, I think it's difficult to compare cricket and football because the captain's role in cricket is a lot more tactical. You know, when your team are bowling, you're responsible for setting up the field.
But there's still a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, there's more responsibility in cricket than football. I think in football it is more ceremonial. The best teams have captains all over the pitch, and actually I think that's a problem with the modern game. There aren't enough leaders, even in the very top teams in the country, and certainly that is a problem at Manchester United. Therefore, there was more focus on the guy wearing the armband because there weren't leaders across the rest of the field. But I think when it comes to Maguire, I'm not sure you can blame his poor form on taking the armband. I'm not buying that, really.
Interesting. I wonder what you think if you're an Aston Villa supporter this morning. 03717 2233 44. You can text us 81089. You can get in touch on Twitter as well. Aston Villa fans, are you happy with this ruthless decision? What it does show is that Steven Gerrard has got a very decisive, ruthless streak. And some managers obviously take their time over decisions like this. Some people were quite sort of, 50-50. What should I do here? What should I do there? I don't think Steven Gerrard can ever be accused of that. He's forthright. He's decisive. He's made his decision. Everyone's got to abide by it and crack on. Yeah,
I think he was like that as a player. So no real surprise. Obviously, you mentioned Danny Murphy was a good mate of his, but he knows all about his desire to win, his determination, that single-mindedness. So no surprise he's taken that into management. But we asked a question, I think, on the Boot Room on Sunday, which manager goes into the season under most pressure? I think he's right up there with the money that was spent and the way they fell away.
No, he's not.
I do.
He's not. You're telling me he's under more pressure than Ten Hag, Thomas Tuchel, two managers who haven't got what they want in the transfer market. Ten Hag's had a problem with Ronaldo. He's in charge of a massive club like Manchester United and trying to get in the Champions League. You reckon that Antonio Conte is under less pressure than Steven Gerrard, having spent all that money and been given the opportunity to build his team in his own image? Mikel Arteta, I don't think that Steven Gerrard is anywhere near as much under that sort of pressure as those managers. And certainly, what about Brendan Rodgers? Poor geezer hasn't been able to sign a single player.
I think if they start the season this year as badly as they did under Dean Smith, he might have questions to answer.
I don't think they will. You're listening to talkSPORT. If you want to get in touch, you can do 81089 on the text.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.